I'm thrilled and a little intimidated to be with this incredibly distinguished and eclectic crowd tonight, and particular hugely excited about being in an event with Jane, Margaret, and Lewis. And you'll hear from memory and aging people who I work with every day, Virginia and Aimee. So Jane and I met about 15 years ago. She was a visiting artist at UCSF. She put on some of the most amazing events with our scientists that I've ever been involved with. She had us read our favorite poems. We had an evening devoted to what poets tell us about death and dying. It was the first time in my medical career, I'm kind of shocked to tell you, that I'd ever really formally thought about death and dying in a medical context. So that tells you some real deficits in where the arts can really enrich our world, and as patients, your world as well. So I'm gonna do something I don't usually do. I'm not using slides. I'm gonna read something about memory that I've written with a friend, Cindy Weinstein, who's writing a book about her mom who had Alzheimer's disease, and she asked me to explain some of the things from my scientific perspective about what happens when someone's sick with something like Alzheimer's disease. So what, where, and when an experience happened is something that our brains capture as we move through our world. This process is called episodic memory. What happened, where it happened, and when it happened. And the fact that we can constantly learn and lay down new episodes is a fundamental feature of our normal existence. It allows us to learn and grow and change. And I think as I've read Margaret, Jane, and Lewis's work, I think this is one of the important things that they have written about with regards to memory and forgetting. Memory systems, episodic and semantic, have helped me grow and work as a behavioral neurologist at UCSF. I've been here 21 years. Remember every day, almost, and to live and grow with my family and friends. Without a hippocampus, there is only an experience, fleeting, brief, and quickly forgotten. That's what happens to someone with Alzheimer's disease. It's our teeny hippocampus, about as big as my thumb, that is responsible, and Virginia will talk some about this, for binding a moment and allowing us to re-experience that moment if we decide to do so at a later time. So we have visitors at the Memory and Aging Center from the Global Brain Health Institute from Dublin, and we all had some ice cream together, and I remember pretty well getting a ticket, giving it to the Ben & Jerry's guy, thinking about how Ben & Jerry's compares to Three Twins and some of these other important ice creams that we live around. And you know, I will keep that in my brain, I think, for a long time because of my hippocampus. Each time the prior event is rehearsed, the experience is bound more tightly to the hippocampus. So most of the things that we all experience today were not rehearsed. We quickly let them go, and they're probably gone forever. Scientists use the term consolidation to capture this process by which we repeatedly relive an experience, making the binding of that experience to the hippocampus stronger and more likely that we'll be able to retrieve it at another time. If the hippocampus is unable to bind a memory, we are trapped in the present and quickly forget new conversations, movies, books, speeches, and even shared experiences. The other thing that happens is we can't travel into the future with our concept of the self. So we are very bound and trapped in a very tragic state. The Alzheimer patient plaintively repeats what they have said again and again because they can't remember what they have previously said. Experiences erased from our brain. Okay, even with Alzheimer's disease, there are things that are hard to forget. When something is highly emotional, we are more likely to remember it. On November 22nd, 1963, I was an 8th grader at the University High School in Madison, Wisconsin. Our morning French class began with the normal shuffling of papers. I was just easing into my seat when John Kennedy's assassination was announced over the intercom across the school. Time froze. I felt an enormous flush of fear and sadness. I loved John Kennedy. Some people in my class whispered, "Oh no." I struggled nearly in panic with this unthinkable. Our president is gone. After a moment of silence, our young teacher, who was gentle and kind, she came from Paris. She looked across the class instead. I still remember the cadence and content of her words. "Sois brave, mon élèves. Be brave, my students." Her face was serious and grave, but evoked in me an overwhelming sense of empathy. Room became quiet again. I felt relief. Things were going to be okay. I was proud to be her élève, and she had lifted the class from a sense of despair. When I was talking about this event with Aimee and Virginia, I realized that almost all of the event no longer means anything to me, except for watching this amazing young leader, this young woman, who I think in my lifetime was the first teacher that I had seen something that I thought was extraordinary from, and forever I think about her and the model she was for us at that moment. So that moment, experienced by many others on November 22nd, 1963, is called a flashbulb memory, something that we remember vividly throughout our life. Sometimes these are experiences that are shared across the world, like Kennedy's assassination, or when we heard about 9/11. Others are personal. A first kiss, I remember that. Personal failure in school, I had a lot of them. Accident, had some of them too. Any event that is highly personal and evokes emotion, extreme emotion. When this happens, and Virginia will talk some about this, the amygdala activates along with the hippocampus, and certain memories are instantly sealed. This is certainly an important factor that helps us remember those emotional experiences that form our existence. And with Alzheimer's disease, we're often left with a clutter of these flashbulb memories, and I think they stay sealed in our brains till the very end stages of these diseases. So these are things that we don't forget. And I think Virginia will talk some about why it's so important that there's some things we never forget. But Lewis is going to talk about the other side of this, which is why it is so important to forget. So thank you.